do it in Spanish, but it would be ugly. Let everybody know that they're being included. I'm recording this. You're fully informed. Don't sue the university or me. All right. All right. This is the actual homework. I don't want that one. I want, where's Excel? Right here. Okay, so I have some data. I'm going to get rid of this too. We have, this data is very similar. All the data in the homework is in the 400, 500 range. So the numbers are different. The numbers are going to come out different because the numbers are different. It's that simple. But the first problem says, how do we calculate for a given data set? How do we calculate the MAD, the MSE, and the MAPE? Mean absolute deviation, mean squared error, and mean absolute percent error. The second problem says, how do we use linear regression to come up with a regression model? Remember, regression has what capability? It gives us a y equals mx plus b, where x is time, and allows me to forecast as far into the future as I want. The downside is the farther out I forecast, the less reliable the forecast is. The other downside is, so the upside is I can forecast as far out as I want, but the downsides are, one, the farther out, it's unreliable. Two, you're committed to the slope. Every time period you move forward, the forecast goes up or down by the slope, whether it's positive or negative. Every time. So it's constantly increasing or constantly decreasing. So what's the first thing we do with any data? If you look at data and you're trying to do some regression, I highlight the data. Usually in Excel, the first column will be the X, the second column will be the Y. So if I have week, that's my time, so it's a time series. And the second one, the sales, the actual sales, are what I'm trying to forecast in this case, the demand. So I go here to insert, and as everybody, my age historically has told everybody your age. You don't know how lucky you got it today, you kids. You don't even know. I mean, this Excel is very nice. It gives you all kinds of things. It gives you all kinds of graphs you can draw just by looking at it. None of them are what I want in this case. Well, darn. Excel is not a mind reader, but I'm going to go with the scatter diagram. Does it look like it could be a line? Sure does. I mean, it looks nice. The thing that I could do, if I click on the y-axis numbers, it goes from 0 to 600. But notice there's a lot of space between 0 and 300. So what if I made it 300? It still looks like I could put a line through there, but the variation from points to point seem more pronounced. Which is the right way to do it? I mean, if I made it from, here's the wrong way to do it. If I made it 0 to 20,000, it looks like it's a flat line, right? We don't like that. So let's not do that. But 0 to 600, I'll stick with that. Excel does a decent job of picking what it should be. But if I want to go 300 to 600, that's okay too. The risk of that is some people assume this corner point is 0, 0. So if you make it 300, just be careful. There's art and science to it, right? Okay. Now we're trying to fit the line. And you could almost see where the line would go. You could almost draw it if you had a ruler, or if I could move the mouse with a steadier hand, I could almost draw where the line is. Well, there's ways of calculating what the slope and the intercept should be, but there's also, it is Excel, and as you kids don't know how good you have it today, Excel has like one button you could push and it will give you the regression equation. It's not a class on regression. It's not a full class on forecasting. So let's use the shortcut. So see where it says quick layout? There's all kinds of different layouts I could use. And it takes you through the layouts. And if you don't remember which one to use, I know because I do it all the time. The one that works is the one that says FX. And if I move this over here, hey, it gives me y equals 5.5818 x, which is time, in this case weeks, plus 436.2. So my slope is 5.5818, and my slope is 436.2. That works. I don't need the, if you want to keep the key, you can keep it. If not, I like to get rid of it. And I might want to put sales forecast or something like that here, right? And I might want to put over here sales because if you don't label the graph, you want to make your stuff, everything you do in Excel, look like you can copy and paste it into a PowerPoint to give a presentation to your boss or your boss's boss. So the one thing that people like me, if I'm in a corporation and you're making, and I'm some a VP of something or other, and you're making your first corporate presentation to me, they just love to educate you on the spot by making you squirm a little bit, right? So if your graphs aren't labeled, I've seen people do it a lot of times. They will just say, "What am I looking at here?" They know what they're looking at, but they're going to ask because you haven't labeled what the graph is and what it says, or you haven't labeled it in the way they like to see it labeled. So sales, and I don't know if it's units or dollars, so I'm not going to put it. I don't really know. And this is weeks, right? Okay. I'm going to push my graph off to the side. Then I'm going to put a column that says forecast. And what's my forecast? Well, I put an equal sign, which means I'm going to do some calculations. And I'm going to put the slope, 5.5818 times, which is the star, and the week, which is the 1 there, plus 436.2. And it says my forecast should be 441.7818. Well, I don't want that many decimal places because we're forecasting in presumably units, right? So I'm going to just change it to 442. Now, to make that forecast apply to every row, what do I do? I just copy it down. And what changes? Not the slope, not the intercept, but it goes from C3, C4, C5. So it changes from week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to 10. Yay. We forecasted my historical data using this linear model. Now, if I wanted to forecast in the future, I put 11. Oh, and wow, Excel automatically gives me the next few numbers. Isn't that nice? So I go here to the graph and I extend these. Well, let's say I want to make a graph with all three of these things. How would I do it? I would highlight all three. And then I would say insert a scatter diagram like that and like this. And go to my quick layout and put FX and move this over here. And get rid of that. And now it shows the data, and the orange part shows where the line goes. And it looks like that would be a reasonable forecast for the next 3 weeks, right? I don't need to keep that. But I'm going to keep the forecast anyway. So then what do I need to calculate? Error, absolute deviation, square deviation, and APE. What is APE? Absolute percent error. That's what I'm going to calculate. So let's do that. And then, so what's my error? Error is actual, so D3, minus E3, which is a forecast. So the first thing my sales were higher than my forecast. The second one, my forecast was below the sales, or above the sales. My forecast was above, below, below. Now, what do I want to do? Well, I don't want all that, though. I don't want it here because there's no actual to compare it to. So I can add up these numbers and divide by what? 10 to get the average? Average error. I could do that. But I want the average, so why don't I just say equal sign? And Excel has so much functionality in that it has mathematical functions in it. If I type average, it will tell me, here's the first one, returns the average arithmetic mean of its arguments. That's what I want. So I put a parentheses, and then I go to the top. There, I want to highlight those numbers I'm taking the average of. And notice it comes out to be 0. How many decimal places does it come out to be 0? 4 decimal places. It comes out to be 0. Why does it come out to be 0? Here's how our regression line works. I have this data of 10 weeks and 10 months of sales, right? Or 10 weeks of sales, actual sales. It's going to take the average number of weeks. So what's the average 1 through 10 added up together? It's going to be 5.5, right? And it's going to take the average number of sales, whatever that is. And that point is always going to be a point on the line. So now it's just a matter of changing the slope to get the right one that minimizes the errors. So you want half the points above the line, half the points below the line, so that you come close to 0. So this is an unbiased forecast, right? I'm not over forecasting or under forecasting. So my bias is 0. Okay. I'm going to clean this up later. This is not clean right now. How do I do absolute deviation? Well, I put equal sign, and then I'm going to guess. I didn't know how Excel does absolute value, but let me just start typing absolute value. Oh, ABS. What does that say? Returns the absolute value of a number. Well, let's do that. And then what number do I take the absolute value of? That number. And it gives me all these decimal places. Do I need this many decimal places? Let's say no. So I go to where it says number, and I get rid of decimal place. I want to keep 1. 1 more than I had. in the actual error. It makes it look like I'm really doing something analytical. And I move this over and it says 21. And does that give me the average of everything above it? If I click here, oh yes, give me the average of all those numbers. And probably I want to go down here again. Oops, sorry. Click on it, and I probably want to add a decimal place. 21.1. And what is that? Mean, absolute deviation. How do I square my absolute? Well, to square it, I just click on 18.2. And how do I get squared? I can do multiply by the same thing, or I can go shift the little hat thing above the 6 and write squared. Wow, that's a lot of decimal places. So why don't we get rid of all those except one? And then let's close that up. And what do I want to do? I want to bring all this down. Uh-oh, I made a mistake, kids. I got this in the wrong place. Let me put a big delete there. And what do I want to put here? I want to bring this number down because that's my next error. Now it's the error 0 again. Why is the error 0? That's not 0. Now I wanted, it was 6. And maybe I had it right. Who knows? At this point, I swear at Excel. It's not its fault. It's my fault. My wife would come running in from the other room and say, "What's wrong?" I said, "It's just an Excel frustration." So what do I want to do? I want to take the average of what? All of this. Can I live with 21 being off by 21? Does that make it a good forecast? Or not? It's a judgment call. You being new at forecasting probably look at it and say, well, I'd rather have it like be 1 or 2, not a mean I don't want to be off by 21 every time on the average. I may look at it and say, 21 I can live with. It really depends on what the nature it is you're forecasting and how much the value of being off by 21 means. I mean, if it's a very expensive product, you're probably going to have to carry more inventory to cover for that variation. But if it's not an expensive product, I'm okay with it. I'm probably okay with it. So this is mean absolute deviation. This is, did I get the average there? No, it's not the average. Careful. How much do you bring this down? So I want to say average of what? This stuff. Now, what does 613 mean? I know MAD means I'm off by an average. My forecast is always off by an absolute value average of 21 units. This is like a standard deviation, a variance of 613. Huh? If I take the square root of that, what's the square root of 600? Around 20, between 20 and 25. So it's not much different than the standard deviation is about what the MAD is. Okay, that would make sense to me. But that's why people don't like mean squared error. It doesn't mean the same thing. Why would I want to use absolute percent error? What was the value of using a percentage? If I was to give you a pop quiz in this class, what's the advantage of using percent error? I'm sure I said it on Monday. No, they're all kind of accurate. What if one company sales were in millions of units and your other division only made thousands of units? The MAD tells you how many units are off. The one that's thousands of units average sales, their MAD is going to be higher, right? Generally, assuming they have the same amount of variation but the unit that's smaller is going to have less MAD. So which one's better? Hard to compare when I'm not. Who's taking managerial accounting? Why do they use ratio management? What's ratio management? If I take everything as a percent of sales, it doesn't matter if your company is 10 times the sales of his company. When I look at it as a percentage, I can compare them apples to apples. That's why we use absolute percent error. So how do I do percent error? I go to the absolute deviation. I divide. And what do I divide it by? The forecast or the sales? Made the mistake of making eye contact. Which one do you pick? Forecast or sales? You got a 50-50 chance of getting right if you're guessing. Thanks for playing. I really want to find, I'm trying to forecast sales, right? So I want to find out what percent of the actual my error is to sales. You would have thought about it in a minute if I didn't put you under such extreme pressure there. And it gives me 0.039605. What the heck is that? Is that a percentage? You got to multiply by 100 to get the percentage, right? Then it would be 3.9605. But Excel is such a benevolent, nice thing. If you go to here where it says number and click where it says percent, it tells you 4%. If I want an extra decimal place, it gives you one. And if I copy this all the way down, oops, didn't work, by grabbing the corner and dragging it, it gives me my percentage there. And then what would I do? I'd say, I want to get the average. I don't want just the ape absolute percent error. I want the mean absolute percent error, which means after I'm all done, I take the average of it. So what is that? So it says my average error is 4.6%. Can I live with a 4% error? Again, it's up to the forecaster and the company that's doing it and the nature of what they're forecasting, the value of the items. For consumer goods, I would be delighted with this. Non-perishable consumer goods, I'd probably think this is a good forecast. That's MAPE. Now, what's wrong with this chart? Yes, ma'am. It says 0. Why is that? Here's what I did. I did an average of everything above it. Now, if you copied over the average from the column before, here, let's look at it this way. I did an average here, right? If I copy it over, what happens? I get 0. Why did I get 0? Because it's calculating it as a number. If I expand that number out and show the decimal places, I get my 4%, right? So I got to make it a percentage and with one decimal place. That's what I got to do. Because it copies the format and the formula. Good question, just as we planned. Okay, so what's wrong with this? Can I send this to my boss? Yes or no? Why? Exactly. It doesn't look good. Part of what you should, if you get in the habit now of making things look good, you carry that habit with you. If you turn it in like this, okay, it's all correct, but you will enter the workplace with the habit of not making it look good, and therefore you won't look good. So let's fix it. I'm going to highlight all this stuff at the top. I'm going to right justify it. I'm going to make it bold. I'm going to make everything, I'm going to box in everything. I'm still not done yet. And I'm going to take these bottom headers and I'm going to make it right justified also. That means, and I'm going to take these, my metrics, I'm going to make them bold and I'm going to highlight them in yellow. So the metrics stick out. Now, I don't have to calculate all the metrics all the time. The only reason I'm having you calculate all the metrics here is just to get in the habit. You know, mostly I would only calculate MAPE. So what else do I want to do here? I want to make the top row. This is just my format. I like the baby blue or the light blue, pale blue, whatever it is. Yes? Don't do it just because I do it that way. Make it. You could think, I really like pale blue. What? That's because you're old. Let me use the navy blue. What's wrong with that? I can't read what the heck's under it. So it's not good. I would either have to go here if I really wanted to do that and change it to white, right? That looks good now. Or if I want black type, I'd have to go back to what it was. Just there's some common sense things. That's all it is. All right. So this problem is this problem done? And can I cut and paste the graph and cut and paste this? If I want to cut and paste it, the only thing to remember is this. Go to view, turn off the grid lines. Now, if you want to copy it as a picture, you can do it, or copy it as an Excel. You can do it. You can copy this whole thing or copy it as a picture. Paste it in a PowerPoint, it'll look pretty good. Let me put the grid lines back in. Now, let's say I ask you some questions. Is a linear model a good model for this data set? A, visually. B, using R squared. And C, using MAPE. You would have to answer those questions, right? So do I just start typing any old place? I would recommend, and by recommend means strongly encourage, I'm not actually requiring, I want to insert what they call a text box. So I expand it out, and now I can have this blank box that I can enter text into. And let's say the A was, and would you want to type yes, no, no, yes, 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 no, what? Do me the courtesy of answering the questions in, I know this is going to sound crazy, complete sentences. So I know that you're what question was being asked and that you're answering. So I would say, visually, the linear. Now, visually means I'm looking at the graph, right? I'm looking at the scatter diagram, and I'm looking at the line. And I'm going to say, visually, the linear model looks good, looks okay, is acceptable, whatever. What if I think it's not acceptable, but you think it is? Or what if you think it's unacceptable and I think it's acceptable? This is the art part. It's a judgment call. I'm answering it how I look at it. The second question in the problem could have been per r squared. R squared, what's r squared? Oh, there's an r squared over there, 0.2952. What the heck is that? The heck is r squared? I don't know. Is 0.2952 a good measure or a bad measure? All right. Let me write it this way. And it's not supposed to be capital R. Most statisticians would write it as a little r. Oops, sorry. B. R squared equals, and it's not 0.2952. Multiply by 100, make it a percent. So it's 29.52%. Now I know that you picked the right number. And what do we want to say about that? 29.52% of the Y data, of the sales data, is explained by this model. Not the X data, it's 29% of the variation in sales is explained by this model. I would write it just like that, except if your R squared is 48.7, don't write 29.52. This is the interpretation of R squared. The percent of the Y data, in this case it's sales, that is explained by this model. While I would, well, in this case, I would have, I would like to see a higher R squared. If I can explain more of the data, I'd be happy with it. I'd be happier with it. But that's a good answer, right? The part I want to see is the R squared percent of the sales data is explained by this model. That means you understood what R squared is. Now, the next one is, let's say we're using MAPE. And we have C. Uh-oh, why is it all like printing outside? Because the box isn't big enough. Let's make the box bigger. There we go. MAPE equals 4.6%. I can live with this percent error. Final conclusion. I would use this model to forecast until the MAPE starts to grow. Because remember, it's going to be going up all the time. And I don't know that my sales are going to go up all the time. If I forecast 100 years from now, it's going to be like a huge number. And probably my company will be out of business well before that. Until the MAPE grows too much. How much is too much? I don't know. I'll know it when I see it. Okay, so let's expand this a little bit, just like that. And now, when I have something like this highlighted, there says shape format. I can put some color inside of it. Let's use a light gray, a light blue, I don't know. Let's use a salmon color. And let's put a black border. Oop, I put a black border, the salmon color went away. I got to put the salmon color back in. And that looks kind of nice, doesn't it? It just neatens it up a little bit. Got it? So you can now do problems 1 and 2. Yes. Which answer for what? B. That's the other thing. It's in the regression part here. What's going on? Now, I've highlighted that. I forgot to do something. I usually bold that, and I make it not red, but that maroon color, so it sticks out. Again, you don't have to do it that way. That's just the way I do it. If you go and highlight on the graph, you double click on the graph, I can change the colors of the graph. Some people like the black. Some people like lines going both ways. I just like it. Oops. I'm okay with that. If I'm doing a big presentation, I like to have all my graphs kind of look the same. But if you want to play with it for the graph, use the black in one thing and the different, it's okay with me. That's problems 1 and 2. Why don't we take the same data, right like that. Okay. Copy. Let's create another chart. Let's get rid of all this stuff that was there. Delete. And let's say I put my new data right there. It went away already. All right. Copy. I go here and I paste that. It's not sheet 1 anymore. Let's say data set 1. If I double click on the tab, I can edit it. And let's do SLR for simple linear regression. Sheet number 2 is going to be data set 1, moving average slash, I run out of space. Let's just call it moving average. It doesn't like the slash. That's what it didn't like. Data set 1, moving average, and exponential smoothing. All right. So now I don't have any forecast or anything. I got to come up with my forecast. Let's say I want the moving average to be, should I do 2 months or 3 months? 2 months is on a small data set like this is probably 2 weeks time period. Of moving average is probably better, right? So let's do that. 2 week moving average forecast. Uh-oh, my title exceeds the length of the thing. Well, if I double click, I have a very wide column, or I could undo that. And what I'd rather do myself is go up here where it has wrap text and wrap the text. And I don't know if maybe I'll move it back a little bit. There we go. 2 month moving average. Now to do a 2 month moving average, what do I have to do? I have to have 2 months of history to make the forecast for the next month. So can I make a forecast for week 1 using my historical data? Do I have week 0 and week -1? It's not there. I go down to week 2. Do I have 2 months, 2 weeks of history? I have to have week 1 and week 0. I don't have that. It's not till I get to week 3 that I can make my first forecast. Yes? So maybe I'll go here and I'll shade that like this. That's maybe a little darker than that. A gray color, which means we're not forecasting that. My first forecast is here. And how do I forecast it using moving average? Well, it's average, so I use the average function, which takes the average of whatever I put in there. And I go to week 1 and week 2. I do not use week 3. If I'm going to use week 3 to forecast week 3, why would I take the average? I just use week 3 as a forecast. But you don't know what week 3 is. We're pretending we don't know what it is. We're at the end of week 2 and we want to know what week 3 is. So moving average says just take the average of those two things. And usually every other one is going to, if you use 2, is going to have, some of them are going to be 0.5, some of them are going to be 0, or, no decimal place. Do I like that? I want them all to have no decimal place, right, in the forecast, because we don't make half of something. Unless it's millions, then the 0.5 would be okay. So in this case, I would go here and get rid of 1 decimal place. All right, good for me. And if I go here and put the next time period, I could bring this down 1, and my next forecast outside the known data would be 468. It's always just taking the average. So let's go back to my first set. Are you lazy? I'm lazy when it comes to Excel. The reason I'm using Excel is I don't want to do the same thing over again. Am I going to calculate the same things? The same error, absolute? I'm going to calculate all that stuff. Why do I want to type all that stuff again? Less keystrokes is better for me. So I copy, bring it over here, paste. So I have all that. Now, do I want to calculate? Do I want to go through and do the same calculations? Nah, I do, but I'm not going to type all that stuff in again. I got it right here. Yes? Let's copy this. I'm lazy or efficient. And I paste. Now, the problem is, make sure it's the right thing. It's C5 minus D5. Yeah, that's what error should be. That should be E5 absolute value. Yes, E5, F5 squared, and then F5 divided by C5. And if you highlight it, it tells you F5 divided by C5. Yes, that's exactly what I want. So now what do I want to do? I want to copy these all the way down to here. Then I want to take the average of all those things, don't I? Equals average of all that stuff. And I probably want to take it even 1 step over, but we still have that. Uh-oh, did I do it right? No, it's taking it's copying the cells above it. It's not taking the average. Darn. So you have to enter it myself. Be careful. Sometimes Excel is not clear on how it copies stuff. If it copies from the cells above or below. So I do that. I want to do an average here. Average. And then I want to do an average here. Equals average. Oh, and it gives me a 0.1. Why does it give me a 0.1? I want to make it a percentage again. 0.5. 5.4 versus MAPE versus 4.6. Just based on MAPE, would I want to use a 2-week moving average? I would say no. Good answer. Because my MAPE is higher. Not much. I mean, they're within the same general ballpark. So now do I want to clean this up? Yes, I do. I want to put boxes around everything, not necessarily the white spaces. I got this, and I want to probably bold this up, make it all the same color, whatever color I choose, a bluish thing. And oops, it didn't bold up. And I probably want to have, since I have one of them, I could either do it that way or this way. Whichever you like, it doesn't matter. Notice I didn't draw a graph yet. What if I want to draw a graph? I would draw week 1 sales and 2-week moving average. I would go here and say insert, and I want a line diagram, and I'm going to put that there. Uh-oh, it still has that. I don't want that. Well, let's get rid of the whole thing. Insert. Nope, 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 nope. This is the one I want. There we go. I got sales and 2-week moving average. I like the key on the bottom. I'd probably leave it that way. So let me label this 2-week moving average. Come on. 2. Sometimes I hate computers. When I can't type, especially I do. MA for moving average. And then we go here and just get rid of that extra stuff. Okay. Now, this is not enough to see how it lags. I might change the scale on this one. Is it? No, it's not doing that. Chart title. Why isn't it letting me change the range? There we go. I may change this up to 300. Why? Now the average is lagging behind, right? Notice how it's going down. And then it starts going up. But I'm 2 weeks behind, so it's really using these two to calculate this. It's using these two to calculate that. So it's always going to be trailing. If it goes up, it's not going to go up as fast. And it's going to peak. If one peaks, the other one's going to peak the month later, right? The forecast is going to peak a month later. It's just the nature of that kind of forecasting. But that shows how it goes. And it adapts, right? But because of that lag, I think you have a higher MAPE than you did if you use regression. That's just how the ball bounces. Why? Where did it find it? I don't see what error. Shut up. Sorry, I'm talking to Excel. And I didn't drop any F-bombs, so we're good. Now, what if I want to do the same thing, but I want to use exponential smoothing? Well, and let me put it right here. Let me put this. This is 2-week moving average. And let's say I highlighted all this way across and I merged the cells. And I made that bold and I made it that red color. Oh, that's a fill. I don't want fill of the red color. But I want the text to be that red color and is bold, and I want to make it bigger. Okay? Well, let me copy this all. I can't forecast, remember it's moving average, I can't forecast past 11 until I get an actual for 11. So let me copy this and go down here and put the same thing here. But I'm going to call it what? I'm going to unmerge the cells. Unmerge. And I'm going to merge right to there. I'm going to leave one open. And I'm going to say merge to there. And I'm going to call it exponential smoothing. Exponential smoothing. Alpha equals. And what should we make alpha? Oh, I know it's wrong. I made it white cells or something. I made the color white. No fill. Okay, that's better. What do I want to make my alpha? Let's say I want to make it 0.3. Okay. I have the alpha there. So if I want to change the alpha, all I got to change it there and we'll change it in everything. So how does this work? Well, I want to get rid of my forecast. As soon as I get rid of my forecast, don't worry about this other stuff. It'll work out. Because I got the formulas there, right? And now I can go up row 2. All right, that's fine. I want to get rid of the things the only thing I can't forecast is the first one. So what do I want to say? No fill. I need a previous sales and a previous what? Forecast. Do I have a previous forecast? I have no forecast. So in my first cell there, I have to make up a forecast. It's called seeding the forecast. So I could put 460, but I don't want to put 460. Make it 462, 463. It's eyeball it. Just make something near it. So I'm going to make it 457, just like that. So it's kind of close. And let's make that red. Why am I making it red? That indicates to me that it's a seed. I'm not going to use it in my error calculations. Now, how do I make the next month forecast? If you recall, I mean, you don't recall how many, stuff I said Monday that was general. No way you're going to recall this formula off the top of your head, right? It's alpha times the previous sales. So it's going to be alpha 0.3 times 460 plus 1 minus alpha, 0.7 times this 457. But I don't want to use 0.3 and 0.7. I want to use the actual formula. So I'm going to say equals, there's alpha right there, right? H19 times sales plus parentheses 1 minus alpha times 457. So I get 457.9. The problem is if I drag this down, it will increment everything. These will go from 19, the H's will go from 19, which is my alpha, to 20. The 21s will go to 22s. I want the 21s to go to 22s. I don't want the 19 to change, though. How do I do that? Lock them with dollar signs, right? So if I put in that formula, the way to lock it when I'm dragging downwards, I put a dollar sign between the H and the 19. If I want to lock it the other way, put the dollar sign before the H. If I want to lock it no matter whichever way I drag it, I put it both in front and after. So now I do that. Now if I drag this down, what happens? Notice the number of decimal places keeps growing. Exponential smoothing does that. I don't know why. It just keeps adding decimal places. What do I want to do? I want to go here and make everything one decimal place, right? I probably should make that one decimal place too, just to look good. Now, did all my errors change? C22 minus D22, yes. Nice, I don't have to calculate all that stuff. Are my averages? Now I want to get rid of this, and I want to start putting averages in there, right? Oh, what did I forget to do here? I forget to put bias, MAD, MSE, MAPE. Right? Justify it, bold it, put stuff around it. Let's bold my error metrics, and I'm going to make it a yellow color just to show that they're metrics. So can I just copy this down to the next one? No, because I'm not taking the average. I'm taking one more row of averages. Be careful. I could do that if I want, because I am lazy. But I also don't want to be lazy and inaccurate. So if I go here to the average there, notice it doesn't go all the way up. But if I move it up one, it does. It's not going to change it a lot. I could just tweak it, right? So what's better? Exponential smoothing or let's take some lines out of here. Delete. What's better? 2-month moving average or exponential smoothing using MAPE? The moving average is better because it's 5.7, but it's not that much better, right? I mean, they're essentially the same. Both of them are not as good as regression, but I can change that 0.3 and find something better, can't I? Well, let's graph this. And let's insert the line graph again over here. And this is moving average. Moving average. And let me change let me make that 300 so we can exaggerate what it looks like. That's how the moving average looks. Now, what if I change the alpha? What happens if I change the moving average to zero, the alpha to zero? That means I'm not using the previous actual, I'm using the previous forecast. Everything is going to be 457. Let's see what that looks like. So I just enter zero there. And my MAPE jumps up to 6.1. What if I was to make it 1? My alpha equal to 1, which means now 1 minus alpha, I'm not using the previous forecast at all, and everything will be the previous actual. Well, it really, you can see how it lags. You can see how it lags. And it's still 7.1. So let's try 0.5. My MAPE goes down to 4.9. Let's try 0.3. Oh, sorry, we did 0.3. Let's try 0.7. 6.3. So it's going in the wrong direction. Maybe 0.1 is better. 5.9, 0.2, 5.8, 0.3, 5.7. I don't think MAPE is the way to go. I mean, moving average is the way to go. Sorry. 5.8, 5.9. So it seems to be increasing as alpha increases, right? So really 0.3 was probably okay. Now, what you'd ask the computer system to do for every one of your SKUs where there's a moving average, that's what Holt Winters does. It has exponentially smooth linear trend with an alpha, exponentially smooth seasonality with beta, and exponentially smooth level with using a gamma. And if you say, hey, we're using Holt Winters for whatever aggregation level, if I want to do every SKU separately or just my product groups together, whatever aggregation level I want to forecast at, go in and pick the best alpha, beta, and gamma that minimizes the error based on 2 years of historical data. And we'll come back and do it for you. And maybe once a year you do that, maybe once a quarter, depending on how volatile your stuff is. Maybe twice a year you do it. And you optimize. You can now do all the first 3 problems. Yes? Now, I gave you different formats a little bit. And I asked you, you don't have to calculate all the errors, but if you want to calculate all the errors, go for it. Which means you can probably copy and paste a lot of stuff, but I don't know about that. I don't encourage it because you won't learn anything if you copy paste. But once you get it right yourself, then you can copy paste your own stuff. The last question asks what? Why does it keep finding errors? I didn't make any mistakes. I want to tell Excel what it can do with itself, but I can't. Not in an open forum like this. Okay, so I give it to you in a different way. Here's data, forecast sales. You've got to put the columns in, right? Enter the numbers, and just all you're calculating here is a forecast error. Because I separated the regression and the forecast error, because if you did the regression wrong, then I got to see if you did the forecast error right. So I don't want to I've just separated because either you do the forecast error, I give you the actual sales and the forecast. Notice the columns are separate, different, but it doesn't matter. Number two, I give you something, month and actual sales. So I got the month actually written as the letters, but I put a number because if you're going to use time, it's got to be numerical or else the regression equation won't work. This is a regression problem. And what does it want? Create a simple linear regression model using the graphical method taught in class. Comment on the accuracy of the model using the visual of the graph R squared, and if so, motivated MAPE. No, completely motivated MAPE. Number three, we're only using MAD, but if you want to use MAPE, that's fine with me. MAD is good enough. You have a 2-week moving average and alpha of 0.4. Which one is better? Using MAD for the same data. Now, the question of 4 is, were you paying attention to anything I said yesterday, last time in class, or this time? If a manager asks you whether to use time series forecasting models or regression-based forecasting models, what would you tell him or her? Time series forecasting models are moving average and exponential smoothing. The better way of saying it would be autoregressive models or a linear regression-based forecast. So provide your answers in the text box. Type away. Okay. What time is it? It says it's time to stand up. I make progress towards my goal. I got 3:51. We get out at what, 4:10? Wow, 20 minutes early. But I'm here if you want to come up with your Excels and ask questions. Well, let me stop the recording. Stop recording. Should I place this recording?